Hello, welcome to Chapter 7, homework questions 87 through 91. Question 87, find a possible exponential function in y equals a times b raised to the x form that represents each situation described below. First one, a has an initial value of 2 and passes through the point 3, 128. So the initial value is 2, that's the y-intercept, or the starting value, which is a. So a is equal to 2. What we don't know is the b value. So let's plug in the information we have. We have an x and a y, and we have the initials. So y equals a times b raised to the x. So y is 128, is equal to the initial of 2 times b, which we don't know, and then x is the third power. So we're going to solve this by isolating the b cubed. So divide by 2 on each side. 64 is equal to b raised to the third power. So the question is, what number times itself 3 times could give you 64? Or, mathematically, we can solve this by taking the cube root of both sides, because the cube root of b cubed is the inverse of that, which isolates the b value, and then the cube root of 64 is 4. So now we have all the information to write the equation. We're going to rewrite it as y equals the initial value of 2 times its multiplier, which we now found out to be 4, raised to the x power. When you guys go to write your equation, make sure that you rewrite the x and the y back into the original equation. The only values that you're going to plug in is your initial and your multiplier. Alright, let's look at part B. Passes through the point 0, 4 and 2, 1. So you're given 2 points, but one of the points is 0, 4. So knowing that is your y-intercept, your initial value is 4. So you kind of have the same information as above, just given to you in a different way. The point 2, 1 is the point that you're going to use for your x and y. So once again, we'll set it up. Y equals a times b raised to the x. What do we know? Y is 1. The initial is 4. B we don't know. And then the x value is 2. And so we divide by 4. We get 1/4 equals b squared. So what number times itself gives you 4, or gives you 1/4 actually? Or we can take the square root of both sides, and so that gives us b. And then what's the square root of 0.25, or what's the square root of 1/4? And that will be 1/2. So once again, that gives us the information we need. Y is equal to your initial value of 4 times your multiplier of 1/2, or 0.5, raised to the x power. Question 88. Solve the following systems of equations. In other words, find the values of a and b that make each system true. Be sure to show your work and explain your thinking clearly. So we did some of these in a previous homework assignment, so let's go ahead and look at them again. We have 3 is equal to a times b raised to the 0. That's one equation. Second equation is 75 equals a times b squared. So on this one, b to the 0 is equivalent to 1, which means 3 equals a times 1, or a is equal to 3. So now that we know the a value, we can plug that into your second equation and get 75 equals 3 times b squared. Divide both sides by 3, we're isolating the b squared, so 25 is equal to b squared. And then once again, you can take the square root of both sides. And even though your calculator is only going to tell you that b is equal to 5, it only gives you what's called the principal root. If you also square -5, you still get 25. So once again, there's technically 2 values on this one. So we're going to write both of them. A is equal to 3. B is equal to either positive or -5 for this example. On to part B. 18 is equal to a times b to the second, and 54 is equal to a times b to the third. So once again, very similar to the previous homework problem that we have done. On this one, we don't have b to the 0, so we're going to have to find another way on how to do this. It's easy to solve for a because it doesn't have an exponent, or its exponent is actually 1. So if we do this, we're going to divide by b squared, and we get a is equal to 18 divided by b squared. And then we're allowed to take that value and replace it in the other equation for a. So we get 54 equals 18 times b, 18 divided by b squared times b cubed. So to simplify that, we can just multiply the numerators, and that would be 18b cubed, and then the denominators would just be b squared. And then remember, same thing I showed last video, it's b times b times b divided by b times b, so that's 1 times 1, and then you're left with a b in the denominator, or the numerator still. Okay, or you could subtract your exponents as the property that we use sometimes. And then we divide by 18, and you can see that on this one, 54 divided by 18 is 3. And now to find a, we'll take this value of b equals 3, plug it back in to the equation, and get a is equal to 18 divided by 3 squared, or 18 divided by 9 is 2. So a is equal to 2, and b is equal to 3. Question 89, evaluate each expression below. So we are going to find a. This is the cube root of negative 64. What times itself 3 times gives you negative 64? That would be negative 4. On b, the fifth root of 32. What number times itself 5 times gives you 32? And that would be 2. Just to kind of show you what we're looking for here. And the same thing on the one above, it's negative 4 times itself 3 times should give you negative 64. C, you have the cube root of negative 8. So negative 2 times itself 3 times would give you negative 8. And then on D, you have the fourth root of 10,000. So what number times itself 4 times would give you 10,000? It would be 10. 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. 4 times would give you 10,000, so this is equal to 10,000. Also, remember the button on your calculator where you can find these using that as well, but it's important to know where that number's coming from. Question 90. Rewrite 16 raised to the 3/4 in as many different ways as you can. So, what do we want to look at here? We have 16, and if it's raised to the 3/4, there's many different ways to do this, but there's a couple things we could look at, is that this could be rewritten as 1/4 raised to the third power, because 3 times 1/4 is 3, or is 3/4. So now that we know something raised to the 1/4 is the fourth root, this would be the fourth root of 16, and then all of that would be raised to the third power. You could also rewrite this as 16 cubed and then raised to the 1/4, just switching the order that you have the powers. And now this would be the fourth root of 16 to the third power. So there's a couple ways on how to do that. We actually could take the top one. I'm going to rewrite that down here. This would be the fourth root of 16 cubed. The fourth root of 16 is 2, because 2 to the fourth power is 16, so this would be 2 cubed. And then you could also take that a step farther, and 2 cubed is 8. So there's a couple different ways in terms of how you could write that. I might be maybe missing some as well, but a couple different options there on that one. And the last one, question number 91. Find the equation of the line passing through the points. Then state the slope and the x and the y-intercept and explain how you found them. So, back to linear, we're writing the equation of a line, so we need to find the slope since it's not given to us. So we're going to do the change of y over the change of x, so 16 minus negative 4, and then 7 minus 2. That'll be 20 divided by 5, which would give us a slope of 4. Also remember, some of you guys like to create the table and set up your points, which is perfectly fine. It's the same thing. You're looking for how do you get from 16 to negative 4, and that would be negative 20, and then 7 to 2 would be negative 5. So that's negative 20 over negative 5, which still gives you a slope of 4. Either way is perfectly fine. Now, to find the y-intercept, we want to be able to write the equations. So we have y equals mx plus b. So similar to the exponential, it's the same idea that we have here, is that we're going to plug in one of our 2 points, it doesn't matter which one, and the value that we just found for m. So I'm going to say 16 is equal to my slope of 4 times my x value of 7 plus b. 16 is equal to 28 plus b, subtract 28, and we get negative 12 is equal to b. Would the same thing happen if you use the other point? So instead of using 7/16, could I use 2 negative 4? I'll show you real quick, it doesn't matter. So this would be negative 4 is equal to your slope of 4 times your x value of 2 plus b. So negative 4 is equal to 8 plus b, subtract 8, and you get negative 12 is equal to b. So it doesn't matter which point you use to find that, but you don't obviously need to do both of them. So our equation is y equals m, which is 4, x minus 12. So that's finding the equation. We need to state what the slope is, which we kind of already did up there, but we'll rewrite it here. Slope is, what is the slope? What do we find? Slope is 4. The y-intercept we also found by writing it in the form. Slope-intercept form is 0, negative 12. And to find the x-intercept, we know that that's where it crosses the x-axis, so your y value must be 0. So if you plug 0 in for your y value, 0 is equal to 4 times x minus 12. You can solve for x, and that will give you your x value when y is equal to 0. And so we get an x value of 3. And so I think we've answered all the questions. We found the equation, we stated the slope and the x and y intercept, and explained how you found them, kind of went through and did that as well.